Okay, we are rolling. I'm John.
I'm Henry.
And we're here to talk to you about what is wrong in the United States of America, and we'll tell you right off that we don't think it's voters, we don't think it's the clash of the political philosophies, which we've always had. What's wrong is our election system is dysfunctional.
And what we're here to talk to you about today is the voter suppression which is going on, which is not just voter suppression. That term seems to hide what actually is going on. It's stopping sections of the population from participating in democracy, in voting. And we'd like to offer something in contrast to voter suppression, which is voter promotion. And that's what we're here to talk about.
Okay, that's what we're trying to do, and we want to be as clear as we can about the reasons why our system doesn't work. First thing you need to know is a statistic which you can verify. Since 1900, and probably even back further if you wanted to count, that's 120 years, our system gives us a protection of minority rule. About 60% of the electorate vote. It's always been more or less the same, maybe a few points less than 60, a few points more, but it always hovers around that 60%. And most of the elections are close. And so what does that mean? It means the people who get elected to hold the offices, state legislatures and the Congress, governors and the president, although the president has the electoral college, all the others are elected by 1/3 of the voters, 1/3 of the people who are eligible to vote. And then afterward, we have the craziness of the post-election mutual accusations.
Yeah, what you have is parties with the mutual accusations that John here is talking about. While they're accusing each other of who's right, who's wrong, who's the evil, and who's the good guy, what they're not doing, they're not passing legislation. They're just blaming each other for their shared faults, real or imagined. And one of the things we really wanted to talk about is this redistricting issue right now. That's a form of voter suppression that's going on, and what it does is it further encourages people. Not only are they blocked from the process with the redistricting, but also people just see it as another reason not to care about the system, not to vote, not to participate, and they get discouraged. And that leads us to that low voter turnout, which also leads to what John here was talking about, minority rule versus majority rule.
That is the fatal flaw of the two-party system. It discourages voting. There are only two parties that can conceivably win an election. Other parties are so insignificant they're called splinter parties. And people who vote for independence or for somebody who's neither a Democrat nor a Republican are usually accused of throwing their vote away. The problem is entrenched. People accept it, and we shouldn't accept it. We shouldn't accept what's called gerrymandering. I don't know if everybody knows this, but it's named after a man who was named Eldridge Gerry, Gerry, and he was one of the first who created a congressional district that was shaped like a salamander in order to increase the likelihood that one party would win that district. This should be illegal. It shouldn't be tolerated. It shouldn't be accepted as a political tactic. It's not a political tactic. It's an effort to discourage people from voting and to actually stop people from voting.
One of the things that we're proposing that may seem a bit revolutionary, but it could work. We want to promote voting by possibly having, turning it into like a national holiday, such as Memorial Day, July the 4th, Labor Day. I think that more than anything would encourage more voter turnout. People don't have to take time off from work. People can have time to carpool, get to the poll. And I think that would not only encourage local community amongst voting in local districts, but it also contributes toward true patriotism. Not patriotism that's built on blaming someone, not patriotism that's blamed on an us versus them mentality, but a true collegiate patriotism of America, which the founders really wanted, and they wanted us to participate in government.
So let's let the people take charge like they did back in 77, 75. We don't need to ask the government to make it a holiday. We can just make it the holiday, a national holiday. And the way this holiday is celebrated is you have a picnic at your polling place. Now, you probably have to stay 100 feet away from the polls, but that's still close enough. You bring your picnic supplies and food and have a picnic, and you will be there with your cell phone to film any events that disrupt the voting. If any goons, people wearing masks, people who carry weapons but are not wearing official uniforms, jump out of unmarked cars and they try to disrupt the voting, we will be there to film it and show that people are trying to prevent people from voting.
Yes. Another thing we had discussed before was there's always some talk around every election, especially recent presidential elections, about bad votes, bad ballots, stuffing the ballot box, illegal voting. Why not make voting online? Now that sounds revolutionary, and people say, well, can't that be hacked? But don't we have hundreds of billions of dollars of transactions going through credit cards right now, and between countries and between banks? So they wouldn't depend on a system like that if it was, totally, unreliable. Something like that could be built for voting, and I think it could work. I think it would get rid of the necessity of even showing up in person to vote, and taking that away of, not having a polling place nearby for people that, can't get to the polls and things like that. So I believe that that's something that can be done with the technology today.
Certainly that's one thing we can do. We could develop a voter ID system that's just as reliable as our credit card system. And it raises a question of, who's going to help make voting more convenient, who's going to make voting contribute to developing a greater participation. It could be corporations, it could be convenience stores, it could be libraries, schools. There's a public school in every town, in every neighborhood practically, and they're supported by federal taxes and state taxes and local taxes. So if the parent association wants to have their school be a polling place, there should be no obstacle to that. The parties from time to time are arguing that the system is inaccurate, that people are voting who aren't qualified. This is nonsense. This should not be preventing us from being creative, developing a better ID system, developing systems that use every mode, phone, mail. You should be able, people use their cell phone and their computer for virtually everything you do, and there, again, millions of transactions take place every day, and they're trusted. So there's this argument that we have difficulty having a reliable, count of the votes is nonsense.
Right.
We can do what we want.
What we're trying to say here, and what we're trying to get out to everybody, is that we're just two guys who is trying to get this information out, trying to make people aware. But it's all of us as Americans, all of us as citizens, to demand better from this two-party system, so we can all participate in democracy.
I like to say voters are good neighbors, and I don't like to blame people for not voting. I think the problem is that the system really
Right.
discourages people from voting. Now, I took a look years ago, I took a look at this, you know, some of the surveys that were done to ask, you know, why people don't vote. And one common reason was I'm just too busy. I just don't have the time to participate. Another was it's too hard for me to understand who I'm voting for, you know, what the differences are between the candidates, what the different platforms and different ideas are, what's at stake, I don't really know. A third reason is it doesn't matter. My vote doesn't matter. People are told that even if we had 100% voting, the outcome would be the same. Now that's not valid. We've never tested that. We've never had, not only have we never had 100% voting, we've never had 70% voting. And I think we need to do some experiments, increase the percentage of people who vote any way we can, go to 70, 80, 90%, get more people voting, and I think we'll see that we're going to feel better, that the outcome is more like democracy. Every candidate who takes office should have at least 51% of the vote, not 32%.
That's correct. And that goes into the majority-minority rule that we keep talking about. Yeah.
Yes, democracy is majority rule, and the American Constitution says that the federal government will guarantee the states a republican form of government. Republican is from the Latin res publica or re publica, and that means law of the people and by the people. So that's what we're promised, and you haven't been getting it for 120 years. How much further does it have to go and fail before you do something about it and improve your election system? So in the future, we will probably do a couple of more videos about, for example, about what I call the models for voting, which are slightly comical perhaps, but unfortunately they're very real. There's the sports model, there's the business model, there's the advertising model, and there's the seesaw model. And in a future video we will talk more specifically about how those work, why they're destructive, and why they discourage people from taking the election seriously, discourage people from voting, and we need to encourage people to vote, and the best way to encourage people to vote is to make it convenient and easy as buying a sandwich and a soda, ordering something online, dialing your cell phone. It should be just as easy as that if we take our democracy seriously and we want it to work.
But it is up to us. It is up to us, and we have to push for these things.
So our initial effort, our initial statement is people need to talk about this. You need to talk about it with your neighbors. It's not a discussion that has to lead to arguments or fighting about ideas. We all agree that we're supposed to have a democracy. We are supposed to have majority rule. So ask your neighbor, how are we going to get it? How are we going to get majority rule from our election system? It's not going to work if we keep going with the two-party system.
No.
It'll never happen.
You know, it's funny you mention that, John. I talk to people at work and in the community all the time, family members, friends, and no matter what side of the aisle they are on, Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, however you want to call it, they all have those same concerns. They don't feel it doesn't matter, like you said. They don't feel their vote doesn't count. They says, oh, who cares? They're just going to go in there and they're all going to loot us and rob us. But since we're all feeling that way, that's that commonality that can, bridge the gap, between like, I'm a liberal, I'm a conservative. It can bridge that gap. And like John said here, we should be talking about this. Because if we're not talking about it, nothing's happening. And, part of, I think there's that old adage about, the mark of insanity is doing the same things over and over and expecting different results. Let's change it. Let's make a difference. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation and move forward to a better democracy. Voter promotion over voter suppression.
That's what we have to say to our neighbors. Our system is broken, it needs to be fixed. We can't rely on the courts, we can't rely on the endless debates about some people are too liberal and some people are too conservative. That doesn't, it's not as important as having a system, an election system that works. So thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening, and we'll be back at you with more good stuff about democracy, voter promotion, and hopefully fixing our country together, all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.